According to a recent report, the Pittsburgh Steelers are closing in on a deal to acquire safety Justin Simmons, formerly with the Denver Broncos, four-time All-Pro. So if the Steelers can land him, that would be one hell of a move. And if he ends up signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're going to have breaking news coverage for you guys right here on Steelers Talk. We'll probably go live, but if not, we'll make sure to get a video out to you guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now, because whenever the Steelers make a big move, if they trade for somebody, if they sign a big free agent, we're going to have you covered every single time for free here on YouTube. So before we get into today's show, make sure you click that subscribe button. So here is the report from Antonio Brown's media company here, and I put that in quotation marks. CT-ESPN Network says, source breaking news, Justin Simmons is leaning towards signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deal should be done soon. Now, you might be rolling your eyes at me right now. Jack, why are we talking about a CT-ESPN report here? Isn't Antonio Brown crazy? Yes, but you can't ignore CTSPN, especially if they keep getting stuff right. They predicted the Odell Beckham Jr. story, and they've predicted too many things right over the last several weeks and throughout this offseason to ignore at this point. He called the Houston Texans trade for Stephon Diggs pretty much a month before it happened. Look at the date right there. March 17th is when they broke that. And then a month later, less than a month later, he becomes a Houston Texan. And then also, he quote-unquote broke the news that Russell Wilson was going to agree to a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, he also said that Justin Jefferson was going to be a Steeler. Still haven't seen that deal surface as of just yet, but we're still waiting on that. But there's definitely some smoke here to CT-ESPN having potentially some sources in the National Football League, and this makes a little bit of sense because AB definitely has sources in the league. He knows people in these league circles, so it makes sense that some of these reports are correct. But I will say right now, guys, take this quote-unquote report from Antonio with a grain of salt. Now, I'm sure the Steelers are in conversations with Justin Simmons. He seems like the type of guy that they would want to add to this roster, and that is the big question, isn't it? Should the Pittsburgh Steelers sign Justin Simmons in NFL free agency, adding him to this already great defense that we have in the Steel City? I'm going to answer this question here in just a second, but before I do, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments. Should the Steelers sign Justin Simmons, the four-time All-Pro safety? Type S if you would sign him, or type P if you would pass on him. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. So my take on Justin Simmons is that for the right price, I would absolutely want to add him to this secondary here and to this defense that was already dominant last year. And if you can add Patrick Queen and Justin Simmons to this unit that was already top 10 and arguably top 5 in the National Football League last year, the more the merrier when it comes to these all-pro type of talents. Now, you look at his numbers from last year, 70 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. So Justin Simmons is still a very high-impact safety in this league today. And you look at his numbers over the past 4 seasons, it wasn't just last year. And last year you could even consider as a little bit of a down year for him in terms of interception production. Usually gets up to at least 5 interceptions per season, and he's somebody that is really a big-time impact as a true free safety in this league, and I still think he has enough juice left in the tank to really be an impact player for the next couple of years if he were to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is what the potential secondary could look like heading into the NFL draft this year. You have Porter and you've got Jackson as your kind of bookend cornerbacks there on either side. Then you have Justin Simmons, true free safety, center fielder in the middle of the field. Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick can kind of be your rotation pieces, can kind of be, the guys you move around, your chess pieces. Of course, Minkah's going to be a 3-down player, but he'd be more of like a nickel star player where he's allowed to roam in the middle of the defense and in the slot and kind of disguise coverages, do all these different things that you see the Vic Fangio and the Nick Saban type defenses play. Minkah Fitzpatrick Fitzpatrick can absolutely play that kind of role. And honestly, I think that is a perfect role for his skill set. Super instinctual, reads the eyes of the quarterback extraordinarily well. And of course, as a free safety, he's an all-pro caliber player. But I think as a slot corner, nickel corner, whatever you want to call that, the star player in the middle of the defense there, and if you want to use the Saban term there, I really think that could be a role that he shines in. And if you add Justin Simmons to be that true free safety, that opens up Minkah to do even more things for this defense heading into 2024. So you look at the available cap space. As of right now, the Steelers have just over $11 million to work with, which isn't all that much. I mean, it's still a little bit of wiggle room there. You still have some room to make probably one more big splash move this offseason if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you can cut DeMonte KZ, you're going to save an additional $3 million. And if you're going to be signing Justin Simmons, I think it does make sense to cut DeMonte. He had a really tough end to his 2023 campaign. His speed was kind of gone, and that's something that worries me heading into 2024. And if you think Justin Simmons is a better player and you can get him here, I absolutely think cutting KZ, saving that $3 million, and then signing Justin Simmons to a contract probably less than $8 million per season is what I would do. And if you can get this key defensive piece on the roster heading into next season, I think this team could arguably have the best defense in the National Football League heading into next year and would be the cherry on top of this already excellent offseason for GM Omar Khan. Now, coming up here, we're going to be talking about Max Melton, cornerback out of Rutgers. He's in Pittsburgh today to go on his top 30 draft visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got my scouting report on him coming up right after the break. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor at PrizePicks. And a big shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's Steelers Talk video. And they've got specials for new and returning users alike for the Final Four when you head on over to prizepicks.com/CLNS and download the PrizePicks app today. Football season may be over, but the action on the hardwood is just heating up, and whether it's the Final Four or the fight for NBA playoff seeding, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments at this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. March Madness has now reached its peak with the national championship just hours away between UConn and Purdue, and you can pick more or less right now to make some money on the biggest stage of college hoops tonight. PrizePicks is simple. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, especially if you know ball. Get started now, if you haven't already, at prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app today and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. Again, that's download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy with our friends at PrizePicks. So now the Steelers are hosting cornerback out of Rutgers, Max Melton, on a top 30 visit today. They're also meeting with Logan Lee, defensive lineman out of Iowa. But I want to talk about Melton because I think he's got a very interesting profile here. And I think he could be a day 2 draft target for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the cornerback position. You take a look at his relative athletic score here, 9.65. He had an elite grade in both the 40-yard dash time and his 10-yard split. So he's got the short area quicks that you look for and the long speed. And something that I really like about Max Melton's profile is that he's got the ball skills that you want in a cornerback, especially on a defense with the type of pass rush of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because there's going to be opportunities to get interceptions, and Max Melton has had at least 2 interceptions each year he's been at Rutgers. He's had 2 to 3 interceptions every single year. He's also extremely physical and aggressive, which fits what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do defensively and try to go get those turnovers off of quarterback pressure brought on by TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. And he has the mentality of a Pittsburgh Steeler, man. He is tough. He's not afraid to put his face in the fan in the run game. And even though he is a bit light here, he needs to put on a little bit of poundage. He's 182 pounds, and his tackling is not the best. Lots of missed tackles on his film. There is a reason why I have a round 3 grade on him. I do think that as a slot defender and somebody that can even kick out outside in your base personnel packages, from time to time. I think Max Melton is somebody that fits what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's there in round 3 that the Steelers end up taking him in this year's NFL draft. And I do think that he might move to slot corner because, like I said, even though he's 5'11", 6 foot, he's kind of in that range there. That's decent size. He's 182 pounds, so that's not necessarily what you want to see from an outside corner. Now, he could beef up a little bit, put on a little bit more poundage, and he'd be able to survive on the outside. But I really do think that he thrives in the slot, and I think that his physical mentality, his kind of jitterbug, mentality, and his play style really fits what the Steelers like in their slot defenders, and I think that's what they're going to be looking for here if he's available in round 3 of this year's NFL draft. Now, speaking of the NFL draft, ESPN's Matt Bowen put out the perfect draft fit for every single team in the National Football League. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he picked Oregon center Jackson Powers Johnson, who we've covered extensively here on the show. This is what Bowen had to say about the Oregon Ducks center. The Steelers will feature a run-heavy attack with play-action elements under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. That's a fit for Powers Johnson, given his strength at the point of attack, instincts at the snap, and the toughness he would bring to the middle of the Pittsburgh offensive line. Powers Johnson is quick to identify stunts and close down interior pass rushing lanes. Plus, he can combo/climb to create daylight in Smith's zone run game. He played center, left guard, and right tackle at Oregon, and that versatility will help his value. Now, we've covered Jackson Powers Johnson extensively on the channel. You guys know how I feel about him. He's my number 1 ranked center, and he should be the number 1 center draft target for the Pittsburgh Steelers because, like Bowen says, he is an excellent fit for this football team. But honestly, just reading the tea leaves here and what the Steelers are kind of doing in terms of their visits, in terms of who they're interested in round 1, I don't think Jackson Powers Johnson is in the cards at number 20 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I've been wrong on that before, but I think what's more likely when it comes to center for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they can trade down in round 1 and maybe get traded like San Francisco, maybe like do a pick swap in round 1 in a Brandon Ayuk deal, for example, get to pick number 31, and then if Jackson Powers Johnson is still there, then you can go ahead and take him. Or if he's still available at the top of round 2, what's also possible is that the Steelers could combine some of their draft picks in this year's NFL draft and move up in round 2 to take the center of their liking. And if Jackson Powers Johnson is available somewhere in the range of like the 35 to 40, even 45 range, I would certainly think about moving up if I were Steelers GM Omar Khan, because I think he's that good of a fit in this offense with Arthur Smith come to town. Now, my gauge on what the Steelers are going to do in round 1 at this point in time is I think they're going to have a certain list. They're going to have a list of offensive tackle prospects that they feel really good about drafting at number 20 overall. And if none of them are available, then they'll probably trade down or they will take a top corner like a Nate Wiggins or a Terrion Arnold, whoever the case may be. I think that's the plan for the Steelers. But honestly, guys, look for them to maybe trade down because they have quite a few needs at this point, and they could afford a couple extra draft picks on day 2. Now, let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Pick a position for me that you think the Steelers will pick in round 1. Do you think they'll go for the offensive tackle type OT, the corner type CB, or do you think they'll go center in round 1 type C for me down there in the comments section? Now, before I go, I want to talk about the quarterback situation here because there's been some new reporting here on how everything went down with the whole Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph situation, how they got, how they left and how they brought in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Some very interesting reporting from John Frescella here, and this is what it says. Breaking exclusive. The full details of the Steelers drama involving Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, and Mason Rudolph have emerged. Giants also involved. All right, because he's a New York reporter here, guys. The Steelers met with Russell Wilson the Friday before they ultimately signed him. He did not sign that day because he refused to sign unless he was guaranteed to be the starter. Number 2, my source says the same thing happened with the Giants. Russell Wilson did not sign with the Giants because they refused to guarantee him the starting job. Number 3, in the meantime, Mason Rudolph negotiated a contract to remain with the Steelers, but when he met with them that Sunday, they pulled the rug out from under him. They pulled back the deal. Number 4, when Wilson wouldn't initially sign, the Steelers' plan was to have Pickett and Rudolph compete for the job. Number 5, Rudolph and Pickett had already made plans to start practicing together that Monday. Number 6, instead, Rudolph called Pickett that Sunday night and told him the Steelers decided to go in a different direction. His deal was off the table. Number 7, Pickett tried calling Mike Tomlin that Sunday night, but coach did not answer. Number 8, Tomlin returned Pickett's call on Monday after the news came out that the Steelers were signing Wilson on Sunday. Number 9, Tomlin told Pickett that Wilson was the guaranteed starter. There was never going to be a QB competition. Number 10, Pickett was very unhappy with Tomlin and the Steelers. Then he demanded a trade. All per my trusted source, just wow. So, I mean, this is a lot of information right here, guys. But I think everything sounds correct here. I do believe Russell Wilson wanted a place that said, you know what, we believe in you as our starting quarterback. I believe that Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett were under the impression that they were both going to be back with the Steelers and that they would be doing a competition heading into camp next year, and that they definitely felt betrayed. But the part of the thing that I didn't know about this is that if this report is true, is that I didn't know Mason Rudolph and the Steelers apparently had a done deal. They had agreed to a new contract for Mason to sign, and before Mason was able to put pen to paper and officially ink that deal, the Steelers ended up signing Russell Wilson, and everybody involved here, everyone from Mason Rudolph to Kenny Pickett, they felt betrayed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, because remember, before the Steelers ended up bringing in Russell Wilson, all the reporting was that Russ wasn't going to be the guy. Justin Fields, they weren't going to trade for him. It was going to be Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett as the two quarterback options, and they would kind of battle it out in camp in 2024, and they definitely feel like the Steelers led them on and making them believe that. And then all of a sudden, I mean, they even went as far as to negotiate a new deal for Mason Rudolph. And then all of a sudden, that Sunday, they signed Russell Wilson, which, by the way, I think was the right move. But, man, this is definitely a situation where you can kind of see where Rudy and KP are coming from here, especially if this reporting is true. Now, the other thing that this report confirms is that there's not going to be a quarterback competition between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, all right? What the report says here is that he was guaranteed the starting job to start the 2024 season. So listen, man, if you're somebody that's expecting a quarterback competition in camp, if you're expecting Justin Fields to have a legitimate shot to be the week 1 starter of this football team, you need to maybe give it a little bit of a rest here, because I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be Russell Wilson's job in 2024 until he loses it, period. And you can see that here with this report as well. Breaking, exclusive follow-up. So where does Justin Fields fit into all of the Steelers drama with Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, and Mason Rudolph? Number 1, Justin Fields was contacted by the Steelers after Pickett made it known he wanted out, per my source. Number 2, Mike Tomlin was shocked that Pittsburgh wanted to be traded after the acquisition of Russell Wilson. Number 3, Tomlin was also upset because at the time that left the Steelers with only one quarterback in Russell Wilson. Number 4, my source indicates there will not actually be a competition between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Wilson has been guaranteed the starting job again. Wow. So let me know down there in the comment section. Predict it for me. Now that we pretty much know Russell Wilson is going to be the week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024. And by the way, we've been saying this for a while now. How many games do you think that the Steelers will win next year if Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback from week 1 to week 17? Do you think they'll have a better record, a worse record? Let me know down there in the comment section how far you think the Pittsburgh Steelers can go with Russell Wilson as QB1 in 2024. That'll be it for today's show, guys. I know today was kind of a loaded show. Lots of stuff to talk about coming back from the weekend, so I really do appreciate you sticking with me here. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now if you haven't already for premium Steelers news and rumors coverage all throughout the 2024 offseason.